before we found something.
You indicated when you first started searching that the first search was on the bottom, and you indicated at that time you were searching specifically for hands or feet.
Yes, ma'am.
And why did you decide to search the bottom for those types of body parts?
Those types of body parts have less muscular tissue. They're more bony, and they would stay on the bottom for a longer period of time. Whereas something with more muscle tissue, as it decomposes, is going to come up the water column and float.
So, in your experience with the dive team, would the rate of decomposition tell you basically where to look for body parts? Would that factor into kind of how you search?
It definitely factors in how far we search from a given area. If you're told this is where they were last seen, or this is where something was found, the rate of decomposition is going to change how far you go.
And why is that?
As the body comes from the bottom, it's not going to stay neutrally buoyant, but very long. So it would have hit a current slightly, been carried downstream slightly, and then go to the surface.
You indicated that you had detected a sheen on the water. Why was that significant to you?
We collected the pieces from the sheen, and we requested the cadaver dog to check on it, to do a check. The cadaver dog alerted that it was, in fact, a decomposing body, gave us a positive alert. And at that point, we wanted to really focus our search in those areas where the sheen was, because it was coming from somewhere.
And you indicated that you took so the sheen, you actually collected part of the water that had that sheen in it?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's what you had the cadaver dog examine?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that basically what a cadaver dog does? That is alert if there's the presence of a body or decomposing body?
Yes, ma'am.
After the cadaver dog alerted, what did you do at that point? What did you begin doing?
We did not dive air on this particular search. We believed that the parts would be floating at this point. The water temperature was like 89 degrees, which is pretty warm. The body's going to decompose rather fastly in those kind of temperatures. We wear a vulcanized rubber suit. It's a dry suit. It has booties. It's a one-piece suit that you zip up. In theory, it's supposed to keep you dry. Well, it also keeps air. When you zip it up, you store air inside of your suit. Well, that allows you to be positively buoyant in the water, so you don't need a life jacket. It basically is its own homemade life jacket. We use that method to keep us buoyant in the water on the top. We would pull lilies out of the way, and my partner and I moved into and searched extremely methodical and worked our way through lilies.
And you've indicated that process took an hour and a half to 2 hours before you were able to locate
Yes,
the
ma'am.
remains.
Yes, ma'am.
What happened after the hour and a half to 2 hours? What did you locate?
I recovered a body part that I thought was a leg.
And you said you thought it was a leg, later determined that in fact that wasn't the leg?
Yes, ma'am. It was later determined to be a head. When I saw the part, I saw a very round bone. Later figured that out to be the neck, but I initially thought it was a femur. It was face down, so all I could see was there was no hair on it. It was a smooth back of a head. As we rolled the head over, then you could see that it was in fact a face, and parts of the skin and tissue began to roll off. Or not roll off, peel away.
And you've indicated that when you first came upon on this, this remain, you thought it was the leg, because what you were actually seeing, you later learned, was the neck.
Yes, ma'am.
And so the bone that you were seeing, was that where it had been attached to the rest of the body?
Yes, ma'am. It was very high up. There was actually not a neck. It was higher up on the head, and that's what I saw as the round bone.
And at that point, did you recover the head and remove it from the water?
Yes, ma'am. Because the skin and tissue was starting to roll off, we placed it in a sheet so we didn't lose anything. Marked the area where it was recovered, and we took it to the bank.
In terms of where you got into the water, there was a landing with a mowed down part. Did you go in there, or did you go down further creek?
Initially, we went in there when we did our first search that was on scuba, but for the secondary search, no, we walked down a bank side and worked off the bank's edge there.
After you had recovered the head, did you and the other divers continue to search for further remains?
Yes, ma'am. Once the head was removed from that search pattern, we could still smell a very strong scent and believed there to be more, so we continued our search.
And did that involve the same process in terms of working your way through the water lilies?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you recover another item?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you recover?
And that was the leg this time.
Where was that leg recovered in relation to where the head was recovered?
In the same general vicinity, I'd have to look at the diagram for the measurements, but within 15-20 feet of it.
And you indicated that when you went into the water, you had been given information about where the torso had been recovered the day previously?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you undertake to mark in any way the area where you recovered the head and leg?
Yes, ma'am.
And how did you go about doing that?
Because the parts were decomposing and coming apart, we didn't want to leave them in the water to measure them. We wanted to get them out of the water and secure, so we weren't losing anything else. We placed a ribbon in the area on the lilies where they were recovered, and then we measured from points to the ribbon.
And were you working with the Fort Bend Sheriff's Office, and particularly Detective Witchard in that process, or turning over that information to
Yes, ma'am.
Detective Witchard? Did you, the leg, was that a portion of the leg?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you continue to search after that?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you able to recover any additional items?
No, ma'am. We didn't find anything else at that point.
Did you return the following day?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you do the following day?
The same search pattern. And we actually employed, I believe, 2 more divers and continued that same search technique, and were unsuccessful in finding anything else.
Were you aware that some weeks later, or a week later, that an additional leg portion was found 0.3 of a mile downstream?
I was told that much later. Yes, ma'am.
And that wasn't as a result of any of the efforts of the Houston dive team?
No, ma'am.
The area where you were working on the 25th, when you recovered the head and the portion of the leg, in that area, did the water lilies go almost all the way across the water?
Yes, ma'am. There was a break in the lilies, but I don't know, because Richmond Fire had been out there on Sunday. I don't know if they caused that break in the lilies, and originally they were all the way across, but when we got there, it was just a small, narrow channel and a break in the lilies. It was almost all the way across.
And you had testified earlier that the root system with regard to the lilies would go 6 or 7 inches down, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so depending on the stage of decomposition, if it was in an earlier stage and there was a current, they would have gone underneath those lilies?
Yes, ma'am.
Potentially?
Potentially. Achieving neutral buoyancy is very difficult. You're either
What do you mean when you say that neutral buoyancy?
to stay even in the water column, just to hover in the water column evenly is very difficult. You're either on the bottom or you're on the top, but you don't stay in the middle very long. So if there's a current coming through there, and something comes off the bottom, it's going to get carried down slightly, but it's not going to go very far generally, because you don't stay in neutral buoyancy for very long.
And so you would be back on the top?
And when I say on the top, I don't mean that it's popped up on top of everything. It's just as high as it can go because lilies, and in this particular instance, roots were on top of it.
And did you note that there was a current there in Oyster Creek?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you were just talking about how difficult it is to maintain the neutral buoyancy, you said, you don't stay on the bottom very long, or you don't stay in the water column very long. You're either on the bottom or coming up to the top. When you say do you also mean that to include somebody's remains or?
Yes, ma'am. What I meant is a body would not stay it's either on the bottom or it's on the top, not necessarily me. I meant the body or body parts.
You now approach the witness.
You are.
I'm handing you, Officer Davis, what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit A-222 and State's Exhibit A-223. And ask if you recognize those.
Yes, I do.
Turning your attention first to State's Exhibit A-222, what is that?
That's a picture of Oyster Creek from the west bank, pointed back north. That's what it looks like.
And this particular area of Oyster Creek, the flow was to the north, is that right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's the east bank, pointed back north. But yes, the flow was north in this particular area. Oyster Creek actually flows north for a short period of time.
And State's Exhibit A-223,
Yes, ma'am.
do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, ma'am.
And what's shown in State's Exhibit A-223?
That's a picture of me and my partner on that day. My partner's holding a ribbon, and the ribbon is placed where I recovered the head.
Now, at this time, the state would move to introduce into evidence State's Exhibit A-222 and State's Exhibit A-223.
No, we received.
I'd ask permission to publish those on the large screen. They do not depict the body part.
Okay, you may.
Officer Davis, this is State's Exhibit A-222 up on the screen. And do you indicate this is looking from the east bank towards the north?
Yes, ma'am.
And is this the area that you went into the water to begin the search?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you able to see in this photograph the lilies, the vegetation that you've described earlier?
Yes, ma'am. Here and here, and it actually crosses down there.
Turning your attention to State's Exhibit A-223. Can you describe what's shown in this photograph?
That's me swimming out of the way of, and I don't know if you can see it right there, there's a ribbon. Mark's holding that ribbon to document where the head was recovered from. As you can see how high those lilies are, we were having to pull each clump of lilies back and go in and look. It wasn't like you could just raise up on top of the water and look down in it. You had to pull them out and put them behind you to search that water.
So this area that we're seeing right here where the pink ribbon is, where you recovered what was later determined to be the victim's head, this is after you moved lilies out and searched in that area for an hour and a half to 2 hours?
Yes, ma'am. You see how they're pushed down right there? We've done that. They weren't. If you go back to the other one, you can see that they're up. We've pushed these lilies down, pulled them out of the way. At times we pulled them behind us. We employed a boat to actually try to dam up the lilies and hold them off of us, but the current was pushing them down on top of us. And at times you wouldn't even be able to see us inside of there.
And using Stakes Exhibit 223, if we zoom in, are you able to talk about the sheen that you observed on the water and
Yeah, if you see the little white stuff, see the white thing on his suit right there, and then there's sheen, this stuff right here. Well, that's bubbles, but that white stuff that's gathered up against his black suit is the sheen that we were talking about, and it's the same stuff that we collected and later had the cadaver dog.
And again, that's as you see, kind of moving out. You don't see that sheen further out away from
No,
where
ma'am.
you are at that time.
No, ma'am. It's collected up against the lilies, and us as we're inside of there.
And is that sheen produced as a result of the decomposition
Yes.
of the body?
Yes, ma'am. As it comes apart.
Officer Davis, Your Honor, I published 229, 229.
You may.
This is a schematic of that Oyster Creek area, State's Exhibit 229. Do you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
And marked on this are various numbers depicting where certain parts of the victim's body were located. Do you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
And 5 and 6, specifically with regard to 5, is that where you recovered the victim's head?
Yes, ma'am. It is.
And 6, is that where we recovered the portion of her leg?
Yes, ma'am.
And 2 and 3 represent where the torso was found. And does that appear accurate to you in terms of the relative location as it was explained to you?
Yes, ma'am.
And item number 4, which is further back towards the landing area where another portion of the leg was found earlier, does that appear to be accurate in terms of its relation to where you found the head?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have any further questions at this time.
Any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you, officer. Thank you very much. It's 5 o'clock. It's probably a good time to stop for the evening. You haven't heard it all. Keep an open mind. Don't form or express any opinion about the guilt or innocence of the defendant or any matter in controversy. Be careful about your conduct. Follow my previous instructions. We'll start at 9:30 in the morning. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. We'll see everybody at 9:30 in the morning. Thank you. me get a let me get a little bit of a check on how we're doing. Are we on track? Are we behind? Are we ahead? Or how are we doing from the state's perspective?
Your Honor, I would say from our perspective, we're on track. The witnesses that, we have 2 additional witnesses that are here from Texas that we can start with in the morning.
Okay.
And then we anticipate Dr. Mambo is coming in around lunchtime, so
Okay.
he'll be available. And then we've got 2 additional witnesses coming in from Texas in the afternoon. So
Okay.
I think we're it's working according to the schedule.
Okay, great. Let me advise you all that I've got a medical procedure that has been scheduled for a long time that I tried to reschedule and could not for Thursday morning. We may have to start a little bit late on Thursday, just for your planning purposes. If I can't rearrange that, we won't be able to start at 9:30. Maybe 11:30 before we get started on Thursday. So I'll let you know tomorrow. Anything else?
There is, Judge. I just wanted to, with regard to Officer Davis, there were photos that had been admitted with regard to the Grant Hayes case that I did not seek to admit in this case relating to the photographs of the head itself. You had initially ruled that they were not admissible because of some of the questioning with regard to the chain of custody. They became admissible. So Officer Davis will be here. I don't think that's an issue in this case, but I just wanted the court to know I did not do that because I think that what had opened the door the last time had not happened in this case.
Well, as you recall, in the Grant Hayes case, Grant Hayes conceded nothing, challenged everything, and the state had to prove identity of the victim, which required dental records, a lot of medical testimony, and other matters that eventually you were able to do, but it also required that you show the jury a lot more of the body in order to establish identity. And if identity is an issue in this case, as in that case, you'll have the opportunity to show this jury a lot more of the body in order to prove that. So that was just an evidentiary ruling that I made that you were entitled to proceed on if the identity of the body parts of the deceased was an issue. I have not gathered the impression that identity is an issue in this case. So if it's not, then I'm certainly not inclined to let unnecessary gruesome photographs come into evidence to prove identity if identity is not challenged.
It is not.
I assumed that it wasn't, but we'll move forward with the issue of identity, and then we'll see if there is a challenge. If there's not, then a lot of those photographs that would be probative on identity would be highly prejudicial otherwise, and I would not allow the jury to see. All right, thank you.
Could I just inquire the state who we might expect to hear from tomorrow?
Everybody from Texas, apparently.
Dr. Stimson and Mr. Boyer would be the witnesses we call first.
Okay. Thank you. I don't want to lose time later on things that if the jury is here, the jury is not here. But this motion that Mr. Gaskins filed in reference to some knife that was found in the Durango. The state want to be heard on that? Does the state want to be heard on that?
Your Honor, the issue for the state is there's a murky picture about the chain of custody, and it's not our position that we want to allege anything, but when the allegation is made that the Raleigh Police Department missed things in their investigation, it's our purpose and duty, I think, in front of the jury to show the measures that the Raleigh Police Department took in searching this vehicle. The way that this happened, as I recall, is that it was searched back in 2011 when this occurred. It was then released to defendant's counsel's custody. And at that point, we don't know the chain of custody between the time that Mr. Gaskins takes it from Detective Falk and the time that it's returned to the Raleigh Police Department. We do know that there's a search done of that vehicle by the defendant's expert, and we were notified that that search didn't locate a knife.
So the initial assistant warehouse search did not reveal this knife. The defendant's retained investigator search didn't reveal a knife, and then later it was searched again by RPD, and a knife is discovered. Okay. So where are we?
I think that when we asked about, when the knife came up, we asked about the knife, at what point was that knife found? I think that we're entitled to tell the jury at what point the knife was found. I don't know that that's implying that it was.
Well, it's found on based on the third search.
And I think that's all we've done, is said at what point was that found. And so we certainly are not going to say the knife was planted or anything like that.
Well, in the absence of any evidence to suggest that, and I don't see anything that would suggest that. It sounds to me like an item was discovered on the third search. It wasn't found on the first search. It wasn't found on the second search. It was found on the third search.
It was, but I think that it wasn't in the Raleigh Police Department custody for that entire time. I think that's important for a jury to know.
It was found the first time. It was in the custody of the RPD on the first search and on the third search.
It was.
Okay. All right. I don't know what your motion is.
We don't want the jury to be given the impression that we put that knife in there. We didn't do that.
Well, I mean,
Let me say it this way. On this one. Our concern after Mr. Gaskins listed the question about the dagger knife and the response on the redirect was that was after Mr. Gaskins had custody of the Durango. We don't know where the state is going with that line of questioning, and we became concerned and curious that if it went in a further direction, but if suddenly after Mr. Gaskins has custody of the Durango, now we find a knife, and are we going to get in a position of having to, in front of a jury, somehow establish that Mr. Gaskins did not, or his expert, or Mr. Carlton, or anyone else who had possession or was involved with the Durango, are we going to be in a position of having to defend some allegation if it becomes a trial about something else to the prejudice of this case?
Okay.
That's just what we're trying to anticipate. And we
all right. Well, how about somebody tell me what the relevance of the item that was actually found is, if anyone knows. Is there some contention as to the relevance of the item that was actually found?
No. The only purpose that I can see is to disparage this first search of the Raleigh Police Department, to say that it wasn't thorough, and therefore all the evidence collected by the Raleigh Police Department isn't thorough. I personally don't think there is any relevance to it.
But I'm sure that, I'm sure that we all know that a vehicle search doesn't document everything, and everything's not seized in the vehicle, and you know, and sometimes things are missed. But do y'all contend there's something relevant about this particular item? That I mean, it may well be that you know, a can opener was missed the first 2 times and found the 3rd time. But if it's got nothing to do with the case, then why?
I think to the extent it may have relevance in the case, and it would be to the extent that it corroborates other evidence that has been presented that Mr. Hayes was known to carry a knife and had, in fact, pulled a knife on people. That there's been testimony to that, at least through Laura Ackerson's parenting history. So, I mean,
I don't. You lost me. I don't. If there was any of that evidence, I'm not sure I recall it.
there was, it'll probably come out again. I would anticipate through that same parenting history as we approach Dr. Callaway's testimony.
Did you offer any evidence with regard to the search of the vehicle that disclosed any type of knife?
No.
Okay. Well, then I don't want to deal with it unless somebody offers evidence with regard to whether or not there was a knife found in the vehicle. If there was one found, then I'll have to determine whether it's relevant that the vehicle was in the possession of counsel for the defendant, and whether or not it wasn't found until the 3rd search. I mean, we may sit here and argue about something that turns out not to be of any consequence. So
We know that. We just didn't want it to come up in the trial unexpectedly.
well, it's not going to come up.
We have to send the jury out. So that's why.
Well, there's no evidence that somebody concealed or planted or placed an item in that vehicle. I don't know how it got in there, and apparently nobody else does either. And all we know, it wasn't found until the third try, and it may not be relevant on any issue in this case. So I'll just reserve. I mean, obviously the state cannot make any representation with regard to how the item got in there, because you don't know how the item got in there, but or make any suggestion about that. And whether or not the vehicle was in the custody of the defense attorneys during at any time is not relevant unless you make it relevant.
I understand. I only would like to make one inquiry from the state. In the discovery, after the Raleigh police had the Durango back in their custody, they did in fact do a thorough inventory search of the Durango, and evidently there was not an inventory search of the Durango before. I think Detective Morse testified to that effect. They searched it but didn't do an inventory. They provided an inventory after the Durango was returned, and in that inventory, through discovery, the prosecutors made us aware of a CD that was located in the Durango and a receipt where the CD audiobook was purchased in Texas. And I would just make inquiry to the state if they intend to offer evidence of that particular audiobook receipt, because I don't know if we'll get into the same issue there.
I think we would intend to put on evidence of that book. I think it also appears in the pictures from the search. The first search, the Durango, there's pictures taken.
Okay.
And I think that audio book is, I want to say it's on the passenger seat, but I think it's in those pictures, and that's why we intend to offer evidence of that.
So we don't have any issue regarding.
When it was there, all that kind of stuff.
No, because I think it's in the pictures from the first search. So I don't think there's any dispute.
All right, and looks like that's not an issue. So I don't need to resolve some matter that is not material until it becomes material. So the state is precluded from offering any evidence with regard to the presence of a knife discovered on the 3rd search. Whose vehicle it was in who was in custody of that vehicle at that prior to that is of no relevance. I'll deal with it if it becomes relevant based upon the defendant's presentation of evidence. All right. Anything else? Okay. We'll start again at 9:30 in the morning. Thank you.